24-hour cameras, wildlife sitcom and drama, emotional cliffhangers. Reality TV at its best. The difference? The actors, African wildlife. The set, the African bush. The scriptwriter and producer, Mother Nature.
Last time on Wildlife Diary, a murder most foul. Hyenas pack a new punch in the Mafunyani section. Felix and Zero patch things up and bring down a giraffe. The Karongwe researchers report that the hyenas are settling in nicely, although they have yet to gain the freedom of the Mafunyani. Melissa and Menandi engage in a rare get-together. Melissa still finds it difficult to hold her own. This time on Wildlife Diary, Alf, Pickles and Duchess let loose on the land at last. Felix and Zero fall out again. As usual, a lioness is to blame. Shades of delinquent Flippy as young Shao cuts up rough with a camera. And the rakish Ralani mates yet again. Last time, Duchess, the captive-born wild dog, arrived on the Karongwe. The researchers chewed their nails down to nothing, worrying about how Alf and Biggles would react to her. Hello, boys. Everything ran perfectly smoothly. The beautiful young lady immediately set about familiarizing herself with the sights, sounds and smells of the Mafunyani. It's been a week now since Duchess entered the pack. The two males have accepted her with all the complex social interactions that go with being a wild dog. Indeed, the dogs are overjoyed to have female company once again after losing Anne and Bramble to a mysterious digestive disorder. And Duchess has fitted right in, just one of the boys, so to speak. As for feeding, the robust young female has no problems in that department. All in all, she's made herself comfortably at home inside the Mafunyani boma. And the time approaches for the researchers to make the next inevitable move, releasing all three dogs back into the wild, lions and all. The obvious concerns once more cast a shadow over this option.
Yeah, I think for this female today is a big day. She's been raised in captivity, 3 years old, and this will be her first taste of freedom. The lions were here last night. We got tracks all around the boma, so hopefully she's seen, what's waiting on the outside and learned.
The decision is made, and manager Philip Owen unbolts and opens the gate. A little aperitif to tempt the dogs out of the enclosure. The first tentative steps to freedom are taken by the captive-bred Duchess. This is not surprising. Compared to the boys, she is relatively tame and habituated to human beings. By contrast, Alf and Biggles are wary of people. They also know that there are lions about, something which Duchess fails to appreciate with sufficient gravity. So it takes a few minutes for them to get through the gate and join Duchess in relishing the snack. While the Last Supper is underway, Philip Owen sneaks in to close the gate to the boma. The wild dogs are truly wild once more.
It's always a good feeling to release animals back into the wild. There's a bit of worries now that they have to look after themselves. A lot of things can happen out there. In the boma they were in a protected, semi-protected environment, so we could control a lot of what happened. And now they're on their own, so hopefully they'll be all right. The males will definitely head south to a territory that's known to them, and they've in the past always avoided the lions. So if the lions are north, they're south, and vice versa. So I think they'll be heading south. It's a perfect time for her to go out to learn to hunt. There's a lot of babies around, young animals, so it's perfect. Everything's set for hopefully success.
Freedom is daunting for the dogs. Every smell, every sound, every feature of the land tells them that they're back in fierce, wild country. Their progress is slow and hesitant. It's been some weeks now since the dogs were brought into the boma. In the meantime, the reins have fallen. Alf takes the lead. Prior to being released, he was the dominant male of the pack. Now he once more assumes the responsibility of guiding the dogs to safety and success. But his leadership has yet to be confirmed. A failure to do his job will destroy all claims he has on the crown. Alf senses a strangeness about the Mafanyani and proceeds very carefully. Suddenly, lunch appears over the horizon. The dogs scan the bushveld, looking for the rest of the waterbug herd. Duchess's first lesson in cooperative hunting gets underway. Wild dog packs are the most organized, the most cunning, and the most adept hunters of all the bushveld predators. Perhaps the waterbug senses the dogs are not on form. Its escape is made in good order. The dogs veer into the undergrowth in hot pursuit. Duchess's inaugural hunt brings her a wealth of experience, but sadly no food. From the young female's point of view, 'tis better to have hunted and lost than never to have hunted at all. Having given up the chase, Alf once more leads his pack in a southward direction, but he's a worried man. Duchess is not a team player. How's a dog supposed to coordinate a decent hunt with this rookie? The burden of being the boss weighs heavily on the male. The future of the pack is uncertain. Will they survive? Will Alf retain his provisional hold on the leadership? After the break on Wildlife Diary, Flippy sets a bad example to naughty Shaul. Felix attacks his brother Zero in a display of sexual dominance. And Ralani puts another notch in his pistol as a strange female crosses his path. Young Flippy is a delinquent juvenile bull who's grown up without solid male role models. This has led to naughtiness and bad behavior that is very disruptive for the herd. Flippy has an inflated opinion of his own importance. Fortunately, the older bull, Madala, keeps him in check. What seems like an intimate kiss is actually a very tactile tussle. Madala counters Flippy's pushy attitude during the herd's afternoon browse. The feeding makes a big dent on the landscape. Tons of foliage vanish down elephant gullets in a single sitting. Young Shaul follows Flippy's bad example and gets pushy with his cousin. The rest of the herd ignore Shaul's bad attitude. This is fairly normal for a bull of his tender age. They just don't want this behavior to degenerate into fully fledged Flippy-style foolishness. But Flippy's example has made a great impression on Shaul. Normally this kind of sparring is gentle and cements social bonds within the group. It's a form of message switching, just one of many types of elephant communication. Flippy's mischievous influence on Shaul starts taking on dangerous overtones. Shaul takes matters a step further than your everyday gentle sparring. His attention shifts elsewhere. A camera-wielding human in a vehicle needs intimidating. But Shaul doesn't realize that researcher Ivan Killian speaks elephant language. Trunk up during the charge means the little bull is talking the little bull. Shao's tactics have no effect whatsoever. The wind is taken out of his sails somewhat. He gives an infrasonic rumble, trying to enlist support from the heavyweights. But he's been irritating everyone the whole afternoon with his nonsense, and they're not buying into this hysteria. Oh well, if no one will help him, he'll take Hamburger Hill on his own. These antics do not go unnoticed. Talifa, an adult cow with a calf of her own, realizes that the young bull might have a point. She comes over to investigate the source of Shao's enthusiasm. This is a completely different situation to a mock charge by a juvenile, and Ivan sits tight as the cow checks him out. Things could turn nasty at any moment. An elephant mother is a formidable enemy. If Talifa had perceived any danger from Ivan's quarter, she would have flipped his vehicle over and wrecked it as easily as if it were a plastic toy. All's well that ends well, and the herd moves on to the next browsing area. But will the adults manage to deal with the bad behavior of the young ones like Shao? Last time on Wildlife Diary, the Macho brothers Felix and Zero buried the hatchet in the back of a giraffe. Over a period of days, the lions fed themselves to a bellyful, all the while guarding the carcass from those looking to score a free lunch. Now the lazy duo spend a few days sleeping off the meal. Giraffe Flesh has deleted all memory of past disagreements between them. But that is about to change. Like the Vikings of old, once they've had a fight and a feast, the only pleasure left is the company of women, and the two boys go off in search of Maggie's and Lisa's pride. Maggie's feeling very pleased with herself. Her repeated matings with Felix have left a warmth in her midsection destined to bear fruit in 4 months. Her days are spent in dreamy listlessness. The other Pride members can't get any sense out of her. Ah well, wait till the hunt's on, then she'll wake up to the realities of life. Lionesses form the central core of the Pride. They provide leadership to an assortment of junior females and juveniles of both sexes. They're very social creatures, and Maggie doesn't like to be left alone for too long. Besides, if she returns to the Pride, she may just have the pleasure of bumping into Felix and Zero. Grooming and nuzzling are an integral part of the affectionate relationships between Pride members, most of whom are the offspring of either Maggie or Lisa. Nearby, a group of zebra observe the arrival of the two brothers. They needn't be concerned. One thing Felix and Zero are not is hungry. One of the cubs sired by Zero greets him affectionately. He's a good father and he tolerates the frisky cheekiness of his offspring. Even an older cub is permitted to playfully gnaw and paw at his spine. If Zero were less tolerant, such an act could mean injury and even death for the young one. The laziness of the afternoon belies the tense atmosphere. The quarrelling between the two brothers is about to resume. A witless wildebeest wanders into the vicinity, but the lions ignore him.
There's greater sport to be had. Felix makes the first move and approaches Lisa. Zero looks on bored. Felix samples Lisa's urine in the act of phlegming. Her estrus scent drives him crazy. And he has only one thing in mind. Once more, Lisa's urine mark sends the primordial desire to reproduce surging through him.
For Felix, this town suddenly ain't big enough for both brothers. His first instinct is to assert his dominance over Zero.
This time, Zero is content to accept his brother's show of dominance. It's Lisa's prerogative to signal her readiness to mate. The best Felix can do is lie next to her and hope. Can the male coalition survive this latest squabble?
Coming up on Wildlife Diary, R'hllani the leopard believes he's hit nirvana as another foreign female finds her way into his embrace. What is it about this bushveld swain that gets the girls going? Previously on Wildlife Diary, a tragedy struck the Manati section as researchers discover one of Shongili's grown-up cubs lying dead after a fight. The team's excitement at having found two new young leopards on the Kurungwe quickly turns to sadness.
The autopsy proves that another leopard is responsible. The search begins to identify the killer.
R'hllani, the Manati's territorial male, has a sturdy competitor. This new arrival is a powerful leopard with a lethal set of claws and canines. He tops the list of suspects. R'hllani himself cannot be ruled out as the perpetrator. Male-on-male territorial violence seldom occurs among leopards, but when it does, it's vicious and mostly fatal. But today, nothing could be further from R'hllani's mind than violence. Even the antelope have nothing to fear, because the Manati's perennial mating machine once more has a lady lined up. He's positioned himself north of the reserve, almost on the doorstep of Dipafolo, the researchers' compound. The novelty of walking out of one's house and being able to observe a leopard in its natural habitat never wears off. The Makutsi River separates the cat from the residential complex. Still, the researchers tread very carefully. A leopard is unpredictable. Attacks on human beings are well documented. Ivan's been making regular checks on R'hllani during the leopard's stay near the compound. This close scrutiny has yielded good results. For the last few days, a female has been hanging around. No one knows who she is or where she comes from. Of course, R'hllani's no stranger to female attention. He's a casual suitor, and having the pick of the field, he'd rather wait for the women to come on to him. The girl's a tricky young thing, unused to the presence of human beings and cameras.
By contrast, R'hllani has no problem with Ivan observing him from across the river. He poses sedately, apparently without a care in the world.
The female has a dilemma. She's desperate for R'hllani to plant his seed inside her, yet she mistrusts Ivan's efforts to monitor the couple. She wanders the veldt around the Dipafolo complex, hoping that the human will give up and go home. R'hllani's unconcerned. She'll be back, he yawns to himself. Everything comes to those who wait. But the lady protesteth too much. She's nervous, frightened, skittish, and not in the mood for love at the moment. The object of her desire refuses to compromise and awaits his admirer in full view of the camera. Her instinct to mate overwhelms her. She throws caution to the wind and wends her way towards R'hllani. He's a reluctant partner, but she soon charms the spots off him. This cat's a wild thing, and she makes his heart sing. The femme fatale has got what she came for, but instead of moving off, she tries to intimidate the researchers. She'll be back again, R'hllani thinks to himself. And he's right. She needs to spend a few days seducing him to make sure of a result. For his part, he's had better. This one's a bit too aggressive for a peaceful chap like him. This man is worried. Perhaps he's bitten off more than he can chew here. The female covers all the angles. She gets down to the job of putting R'hllani in the mood while continuing to hiss warnings at the watchers. The female remains nervous and ill at ease. As the end of the day draws near, the researchers dart R'hllani's mystery lover and bring her in to be fitted with a transmitter. Kaylee Owen takes precise measurements of the animal's vital statistics for identification purposes. The rear end of the female shows clear signs of estrus and R'hllani's expert handiwork. The researchers have chosen to fit her with an internal transmitter. The device lodges in the abdominal cavity where it cannot interfere with day-to-day leopard activities. Radio collars run the risk of being shed or snaring on twigs and branches. For this reason, the modern trend among vets and conservationists leans towards the internal mechanism. The female, now called Kumbile, will be released back into the Manati tomorrow. There she and her future offspring will spice up the wild ways of the Kurungwe Conservancy. Next time on Wildlife Diary, a greedy sister refuses to share her food with a pride. Just as the wild dogs start working as a team, Biggles launches a challenge for leadership. The cheetah coalition of Cobra and Shungu lose each other somehow. Can they survive on their own?